Hey guys, tonight we journey into the forgotten vaults of cinema history, where the most incredible Star Wars scenes ever filmed lie hidden in darkness. The deleted moments that would have changed everything we thought we knew about Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and the entire galaxy far, far away. From lost Jedi training sequences that revealed the true power of the Force to extended scenes showing the Emperor's most sinister manipulations, their story is one of creative vision, studio politics, and the heartbreaking necessity of leaving masterpieces on the cutting room floor. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, get into your blanket, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Deep within the Lucasfilm archives, there exists a scene filmed for The Empire Strikes Back that completely transforms Luke's relationship with the Force. In this lost footage, we see Luke alone in his X-Wing fighter, traveling through hyperspace toward Cloud City. But something extraordinary happens during this journey. Luke begins experiencing Force visions that reveal not just his father's identity, but something far more disturbing about his own destiny. The scene shows Luke's hands beginning to shake uncontrollably as he sees flashes of himself standing beside the Emperor, wearing Sith robes, ruling the galaxy through fear. This deleted scene would have changed everything about how we understand Luke's character and his struggle with the dark side. But it was cut just days before the film's release, locked away in a vault where it remains to this day, unseen by the world. Tonight we unlock these vaults together. You are a cinematic archaeologist, stepping into the hallowed halls of the Lucasfilm archives for the first time. The building itself feels like a temple to storytelling, its corridors lined with concept art from worlds that never made it to screen. The air carries the faint scent of old film stock and magnetic tape, mixed with the sterile coolness of climate-controlled preservation systems. Your guide today is Marcus Chen, a former Lucasfilm editor who spent 3 decades in these very rooms, his weathered hands having touched every reel of film that contains the deleted soul of Star Wars. His eyes hold the quiet sadness of someone who has seen masterpieces born and then buried. Marcus leads you deeper into the archive, past rows of metal shelving that stretch into shadows, each shelf holding silver canisters marked with cryptic codes and dates. The soft hum of temperature control systems creates a meditative backdrop as you walk between towering stacks of film reels. Some containers are labeled with familiar titles, but others bear mysterious designations like Luke Additional Training Footage and Vader Extended Throne Room. The fluorescent lights cast long shadows between the shelves, creating an almost cathedral-like atmosphere of reverence and mystery. Marcus stops before a particular section and runs his fingers along the spine of a film canister. "This is where it all begins," he whispers, his voice echoing slightly in the vast space. Every deleted scene tells 2 stories: the story it was meant to tell, and the story of why it was silenced. You notice how the newer sections contain digital drives and hard disk arrays, their LED indicators blinking like distant stars. These modern archives hold terabytes of unused footage from the sequel trilogy, scenes that were rendered in perfect digital clarity, only to be locked away from human eyes. The contrast between the physical film reels and digital storage speaks to the evolution of filmmaking itself, but the secrecy remains constant across both eras. Through a reinforced glass window, you glimpse one of the restoration labs where technicians work with white gloves and precision tools, carefully transferring aging film to digital formats. Their movements are slow and deliberate, treating each frame like a precious manuscript being preserved for future generations. Marcus speaks again, his voice taking on the tone of an ancient storyteller. What you're about to discover will change how you watch every Star Wars film. Because once you know what was cut, you begin to see the ghost of those scenes in what remains. The pauses that should have been filled with dialogue. The character arcs that feel incomplete because their crucial moments were severed away. The archive around you seems to pulse with hidden energy, as if the deleted scenes are somehow alive within their containers, waiting for their moment to finally be witnessed. This is more than a storage facility. This is a graveyard of dreams, a museum of what might have been, and your journey into its deepest secrets is only just beginning. Marcus leads you deeper into the archive, past shelves that seem to stretch endlessly into the shadows. The silence here is profound, broken only by the gentle whisper of climate control systems maintaining perfect preservation conditions. He stops before a section marked with the year 1976, his fingers trailing along a row of silver canisters that gleam under the soft archival lighting. Here, he says, lifting a canister with reverent care, lies the foundation that was never built, the cornerstone that was removed before the temple could be completed. The label reads simply, Luke Anchorhead Sequences Original Negative. As Marcus opens the canister, the metallic scent of film stock rises like incense from an ancient ceremony. Inside, coiled like a sleeping serpent, lies footage that would have transformed our understanding of Luke Skywalker from his very first moments on screen. These scenes, filmed in the scorching heat of Tunisia, were meant to introduce us to a young man whose dreams reached far beyond the sandy wastes of his desert world. In these lost sequences, we would have met Luke not in the sterile corridors of a rebel ship, but in the dusty streets of Anchorhead, surrounded by friends who shared his restless hunger for adventure. Biggs Darklighter, played with earnest passion by Garrick Hagon, was more than just a name mentioned in passing. He was Luke's window to the wider galaxy, a childhood friend who had already tasted the bitter wine of rebellion and returned home with stories that set Luke's imagination ablaze. The deleted scenes unfold like chapters from a lost epic. Luke stands with Biggs and their mutual friend Fixer, watching Imperial ships streak across the alien sky like metal comets. Their conversation crackles with the electricity of young men on the cusp of destiny, discussing the rebellion not as distant heroes in a fairy tale, but as real people fighting a real war that touches even this forgotten corner of the galaxy. Biggs speaks of pilots who have defected from the Imperial Academy, of whispered meetings in hidden places, of a growing movement that dares to challenge the Empire's iron grip. Luke listens with the hunger of someone who has always known he was meant for something greater than moisture farming, his blue eyes reflecting dreams of distant stars and battles yet to come. But these scenes offered more than simple exposition about the rebellion. They revealed the depth of Luke's isolation and his desperate need to prove himself worthy of the larger story unfolding across the galaxy. When Biggs announces his intention to join the Rebel Alliance, Luke's reaction is not just excitement but a profound jealousy, a fear that his friend will leave him behind to face the endless tedium of Tatooine's twin sunsets alone. The camera work in these sequences, captured by Gilbert Taylor's masterful eye, transforms the mundane landscape of Tunisia into something mythic. The power station where the friends gather becomes a shrine to lost dreams, its industrial bulk rising from the desert like the ruins of some ancient civilization. The way the light falls across Luke's face as he gazes toward the horizon suggests a soul already half departed from the world that bore him. Marcus carefully threads the film into a vintage editing machine, its mechanical heartbeat filling the archive with rhythm older than digital memory. Frame by frame, the lost story emerges from decades of darkness. We see Luke's awkward attempts to impress his friends with tales of his piloting skills, his defensive pride when they question whether he truly has what it takes to be a warrior rather than a farmer. These moments reveal something crucial about Luke's character that was lost when the scenes were cut. His journey to heroism was never meant to be the simple farm boy stumbles into adventure narrative that survived in the final film. Instead, Lucas had crafted a more complex portrait of a young man who actively sought his destiny, who made conscious choices to pursue the dangerous path of rebellion even before mysterious droids arrived to catalyze his transformation. The editing machine continues its ancient song as more footage emerges. Here is Luke demonstrating his skill with a skyhopper, the T-16 aircraft dancing through Beggar's Canyon with a precision that foreshadows his later mastery of an X-Wing fighter. The deleted scenes show us that Luke's famous Womp Rat hunting expeditions were not mere target practice, but training for the kind of precise high-speed maneuvers that would one day save the rebellion at the Battle of Yavin. In one particularly poignant sequence, Luke and Biggs sit on a ridge overlooking the sprawling moisture farm where Luke has spent his entire life. The conversation that follows was meant to establish the philosophical foundation of Luke's character arc throughout the entire original trilogy. Biggs speaks of the Academy, of the Empire's brutal efficiency, of watching good men twisted into instruments of oppression. Luke responds with questions that reveal a young man grappling with concepts of duty, freedom, and the price of standing up for what is right. The Empire may have brought order, Luke says in dialogue, that would have defined his political awakening. But what good is order if it crushes the spirit of those it claims to protect? These words, spoken by Mark Hamill with the earnest conviction of youth, would have established Luke not as an accidental hero, but as someone who had already begun to question the systems of power that governed his world. The deleted footage continues to unfold its treasures. We see extended sequences of Luke's interactions with his aunt and uncle, conversations that reveal the complex family dynamics that shaped him. Badru Laz emerges not as a simple farm wife, but as a woman who understands her nephew's restless nature and fears for his safety precisely because she recognizes in him the same qualities that led his father down a dark path. Uncle Owen's protective sternness takes on new dimensions when we see the full conversations that were meant to establish his backstory. He speaks of knowing Anakin Skywalker, of witnessing firsthand the destruction that can follow when someone with Luke's gifts loses their way. His refusal to let Luke attend the Academy stems not from simple overprotection but from genuine terror at the thought of history repeating itself. These character moments, filmed with painstaking attention to the subtle interplay of family dynamics, would have grounded the mythic elements of Star Wars in recognizable human emotions. The Force and lightsabers and galactic civil wars would have felt more real because we had first seen how they affected ordinary people living ordinary lives on the edge of nowhere. As the final frames of the Anchorhead sequences flicker past, Marcus turns off the editing machine and carefully rewinds the film. The silence that follows feels heavy with the weight of lost possibilities. These scenes, totaling nearly 20 minutes of character development and world-building, were excised not because they were poorly made or badly acted, but because the film's runtime had grown beyond what exhibitors would accept. 20 minutes, Marcus says softly, securing the film back in its protective canister. 20 minutes that would have changed how millions of people understood Luke Skywalker. Instead, audiences met him as a whining farm boy who stumbled into adventure. They never saw the young man who had already begun to question the world around him, who had already started making the choices that would lead him to greatness. The archive around you seems to exhale, as if releasing a breath it had held for decades. This is only the beginning of your journey into the deleted heart of Star Wars. But already you understand that every cut was a small tragedy, every editing decision, a choice between competing visions of what the saga could have been. And in the shadows of the archive, countless other canisters wait to tell their own stories of dreams deferred and visions compromised, each one a thread in the vast tapestry of what Star Wars was always meant to be. The archive grows colder as Marcus leads you into a section marked with the stark designation, 1979 to 1980 production materials. Here the very air seems charged with a different energy, heavy with the weight of darker stories and more complex truths. The film canisters in this section bear labels that speak of psychological depths and spiritual mysteries that would have transformed The Empire Strikes Back from a simple sequel into something approaching sacred text. Marcus pauses before a collection of reels that dwarf all others in size and number. Dagobah, he whispers, the word carrying the reverence usually reserved for holy places. 8 weeks of filming in the swamps of Ireland, producing over 40 hours of raw footage. The final film used perhaps 10 minutes of what was captured there. His fingers traced the labels, extended training sequence 1 through 47. Yoda philosophy sessions, Luke's dark visions expanded. The first canister Marcus selects contains footage that would have revolutionized our understanding of Jedi training. As the film begins to play on the archival viewer, you witness scenes of such profound spiritual depth that their exclusion feels like a form of cultural vandalism. Here is Luke Skywalker, not just learning to lift rocks with his mind, but engaging in hours-long meditation sessions that probe the very nature of consciousness itself. In these extended sequences, Yoda emerges not as the cryptic fortune cookie dispenser of wisdom that survived into the final cut, but as a master philosopher whose teachings encompass everything from quantum mechanics to the deepest mysteries of life and death. Frank Oz's puppeteering reaches levels of artistry that border on the supernatural, bringing to life a character whose every gesture carries the weight of 900 years of accumulated wisdom. The deleted training sessions unfold, like chapters from an ancient text on enlightenment. Yoda guides Luke through exercises in sensory deprivation, teaching him to perceive the world through the Force rather than through his physical senses. We see Luke sitting motionless for what the film suggests are hours, his breathing synchronized with the rhythm of the swamp around him, learning to feel the interconnectedness of all living things. Size matters not, Yoda says in one extended sequence that explores this concept far beyond the brief exchange that survived in the final film. But understand size, you must, the atom and the galaxy, different in magnitude, identical in structure. The Force flows through both, connects both, makes both one with all that is. These philosophical discussions, filmed with the patience of a documentary capturing ancient wisdom, would have established the metaphysical foundation upon which the entire Star Wars mythology rests. The footage reveals training exercises that push Luke to the very limits of human endurance and beyond. We see him learning to maintain perfect balance, while Yoda disrupts his concentration with sudden noises, unexpected touches, even mild physical discomfort. The lesson being taught transcends simple mental discipline. Yoda is preparing Luke for the psychological warfare he will face when confronting the dark side. In one remarkable sequence that was entirely excised from the final film, Luke experiences what can only be described as a guided journey into his own subconscious. Yoda induces a trance-like state in his student, then verbally guides him through an exploration of his deepest fears and desires. We see Mark Hamill's face cycling through emotions as Luke confronts phantom versions of his friends, his family, and ultimately himself in various states of corruption and redemption. Know yourself, you must, Yoda intones during this deleted vision sequence. Before know your enemy, you can, for the enemy within and the enemy without, reflections of each other, they are. The camera work during these sequences achieves an almost hallucinogenic quality, using practical effects and clever cinematography to suggest mental landscapes that exist beyond the physical swamp. The vision sequences continue with Luke experiencing possible futures, alternate timelines where his choices lead to different outcomes. In one particularly disturbing deleted scene, Luke witnesses himself as an old man, alone and bitter, having failed to save his friends because he lacked the courage to face the darkness within himself. In another, he sees himself ruling the galaxy alongside his father, both of them transformed by power into the very evil they once fought against. These vision sequences serve multiple narrative purposes that their exclusion seriously damaged. They foreshadow Luke's eventual confrontation with Vader, while simultaneously preparing both Luke and the audience for the psychological complexity of that encounter. More importantly, they establish the Force as something far more sophisticated than simple telekinesis, revealing it as a connection to the collective unconscious of all sentient life. The deleted cave sequence represents perhaps the most significant single loss in the entire Star Wars saga. While audiences saw Luke's brief encounter with the Vader apparition, the original footage extended this confrontation into a 30-minute exploration of psychological horror that would have redefined the entire concept of the dark side. In the full sequence, Luke doesn't simply strike down the Phantom Vader and discover his own face beneath the mask. Instead, he experiences a series of increasingly disturbing visions that force him to confront the potential for evil that exists within every sentient being. The extended cave sequence begins with Luke entering not just a physical cavern, but a space where the boundaries between reality and nightmare become meaningless. The practical effects team, working with a budget that would be considered lavish even by today's standards, created an environment that shifts and changes according to Luke's mental state. Walls breathe like living tissue, shadows move independently of their sources, and the very air seems thick with malevolent presence. In the deleted footage, Luke encounters not one but multiple versions of Darth Vader, each representing a different aspect of the fallen Jedi's journey to the dark side. One Vader appears as Anakin might have looked during his corruption, still recognizably human but with eyes that burn with Sith fire. Another manifests as the mechanical monster of the original trilogy, but speaks with Anakin's voice, creating a dissonance that makes Luke question everything he believes about identity and redemption. The cave visions include elaborate sequences where Luke experiences Anakin's original fall from grace, living through the emotional and psychological pressures that transformed a promising young Jedi into the galaxy's most feared enforcer. These flashback sequences, filmed with the same attention to detail as the main story, provide crucial context for understanding how good people can be corrupted by circumstances beyond their control. Most disturbing of all is the sequence where Luke confronts a version of himself that has already fallen to the dark side. This dark Luke wears robes of midnight black and speaks with a voice distorted by the same mechanical breathing apparatus that sustains Vader. The dialogue between Luke and his corrupted self explores themes of destiny, choice, and the seductive nature of power that would have elevated Star Wars from space opera to genuine mythology. "You think you are here to learn," the dark Luke says in dialogue that sends chills through anyone who hears it, "but you are here to remember. Remember what you were before the light. Remember what you will be again when the darkness calls your name." The conversation that follows delves into concepts of predestination versus free will that would have given the trilogy philosophical weight equal to its entertainment value. The dark Luke reveals knowledge that the real Luke hasn't yet acquired, speaking of friends who will betray him, of choices that will lead to destruction, of the inevitable corruption that comes with power. The psychological pressure of these revelations forces Luke to question not just his own nature, but the entire concept of heroism and moral certainty. The cave sequence culminates with Luke being forced to make a choice between saving his friends and preserving his own spiritual integrity. In the deleted footage, the visions of Han and Leia in danger are far more elaborate and psychologically manipulative. Luke sees them not just captured, but tortured, corrupted, turned against everything they once stood for. The temptation to embrace the quick path of the dark side becomes not just about power, but about love twisted into something destructive. The deleted cave material includes a remarkable sequence where Luke actually gives in to the temptation, using the dark side to defeat the phantom threats to his friends. The immediate sense of relief and empowerment he experiences serves as a warning about how easily good intentions can justify terrible methods. Only when he sees the true cost of his choice, reflected in the faces of the friends he thought he was saving, does Luke realize that he has been trapped by his own compassion. When Luke finally escapes the cave, the deleted footage shows him emerging fundamentally changed. The naive farm boy who entered is gone, replaced by someone who has stared into the abyss of his own potential for evil and chosen to resist it. This transformation, achieved through Mark Hamill's finest acting in the entire trilogy, would have made Luke's subsequent fall and redemption in later films feel inevitable rather than arbitrary. The Dagobah sequences also contained extensive material exploring Yoda's own history and philosophy. In deleted conversations, the ancient master speaks of the Old Republic's golden age, of Jedi temples that spanned star systems, of the hubris that led to the Order's downfall. These sequences, filmed with Frank Oz at the peak of his puppeteering artistry, reveal Yoda as a character carrying the weight of galactic history on his shoulders. "Failed we did," Yoda admits, in one particularly powerful deleted scene. "Too certain of our righteousness, too proud of our power. The dark side we fought in others, in ourselves we ignored. The greatest enemy, the one within, we never faced." This acknowledgement of the Jedi Order's complicity in its own destruction would have added layers of complexity to the mythology that subsequent films spent decades trying to recapture. The deleted Dagobah material includes extensive philosophical discussions about the nature of the Force itself. Yoda explains that the light and dark sides are not separate powers, but different applications of the same universal energy. The dark side is not evil in itself, but represents the Force used selfishly, motivated by fear and desire rather than compassion and understanding. These concepts, explored through dialogue that combines ancient wisdom with modern psychology, would have provided a sophisticated foundation for understanding the spiritual conflicts that drive the entire saga. In one remarkable deleted sequence, Yoda demonstrates the true power of a Jedi Master by temporarily merging his consciousness with Luke's, allowing his student to experience the Force through the perspective of someone who has spent centuries learning to understand its mysteries. The sequence, achieved through a combination of practical effects and careful editing, shows Luke suddenly able to perceive the intricate web of connections that bind all living things together. The deleted Dagobah material also includes sequences where Luke practices lightsaber combat against multiple opponents simultaneously, his movements flowing like a deadly dance as he learns to fight not just with his weapon, but with the Force itself. These training sequences, choreographed with a precision that wouldn't be seen again until the prequel trilogy, show Luke developing the skills that would make his confrontation with Vader believable rather than miraculous. As Marcus carefully rewinds the last of the Dagobah footage, the silence in the archive feels pregnant with lost possibilities. The spiritual and philosophical foundation that these scenes would have provided might have elevated the entire Star Wars saga into something approaching religious significance. Instead, audiences received a condensed version that, while still powerful, could only hint at the deeper mysteries that Yoda and the Force represented. 8 weeks of filming, Marcus repeats, his voice heavy with the weight of creative loss. Some of the finest dramatic material ever captured for a Star Wars film, reduced to fragments and glimpses. The studios feared that audiences wouldn't sit still for philosophy and spiritual exploration. They wanted action, adventure, romance. They got what they wanted, but at the cost of the saga's soul. The archive around you seems to pulse with the energy of stories that were never allowed to reach their full potential, of wisdom that was deemed too complex for popular consumption, of a mythology that could have been profound but was instead reduced to entertainment. And still, in the shadows of the preservation chambers, more canisters wait with their own tales of spiritual depth sacrificed on the altar of commercial appeal. The deepest section of the archive feels different from all the others, charged with an energy that speaks of completion and closure, of stories reaching their destined endings, only to have those endings rewritten at the last moment. Marcus leads you past rows of film canisters marked with the year 1982, each one containing pieces of what was meant to be the definitive conclusion to the Star Wars saga. The labels here read like a catalogue of lost mythology: Luke's lightsaber construction extended, Jabba's palace political dynamics, Emperor's extended temptation sequences. The first canister Marcus retrieves contains perhaps the most legendary deleted scene in Star Wars history. Footage so significant that its absence from the final film represents a fundamental alteration in Luke Skywalker's character development. The label reads simply, "Luke constructs lightsaber complete sequence." As the film begins to play, you witness something that borders on the sacred, a ritual of creation that transforms a scattered collection of components into an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. The sequence begins in Luke's dwelling on Tatooine. But this is not the simple cave shown briefly in the final film. The deleted footage reveals an elaborate underground workshop that Luke has carved from the living rock, its walls lined with tools and components gathered from across the galaxy during his 2 years of growth between Empire and Jedi. The attention to detail in the production design is staggering. Every tool has purpose. Every component tells a story of Luke's patient preparation for this moment. The workshop itself represents a meditation on the intersection of technology and spirituality. Ancient Jedi texts, their pages yellowed with age, lie open beside precision instruments that could measure tolerances to the molecular level. Crystals from a dozen different worlds catch the light from carefully positioned lamps, their faceted surfaces casting rainbow patterns on stone walls carved with symbols from the earliest days of the Jedi Order. The lightsaber construction itself unfolds like a meditation made manifest. Luke sits in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the individual pieces of his weapon, his eyes closed in deep concentration as he reaches out through the Force to understand the nature of each component. The green lightsaber crystal, a synthetic creation born from Luke's own Force energy, pulses with inner light as he shapes it through pure will and ancient knowledge passed down through Jedi teachings. The deleted footage reveals that creating a synthetic crystal requires the Jedi to literally infuse part of their own life force into the crystalline matrix. We see Luke's face growing pale with exhaustion as he pours his spiritual energy into the formation process, the crystal slowly taking shape as it feeds on his connection to the Force. The process takes days, requiring Luke to maintain perfect concentration while balancing on the knife's edge between creation and self-destruction. Mark Hamill's performance during this sequence represents some of his finest work in the entire trilogy. Without a single word of dialogue, he conveys the weight of tradition, the burden of legacy, and the transformation of a young man into a Jedi Knight. The camera moves around him with cathedral-like reverence, capturing the play of light and shadow across his face as he performs this most sacred of Jedi rituals. The deleted footage reveals that lightsaber construction is far more than simple assembly of technological components. Luke must attune himself to each piece, understanding not just its function, but its place in the greater harmony of the weapon. The power cell, salvaged from an ancient Jedi temple, carries within it the echoes of thousands of past wielders. The focusing crystals, arranged in patterns that mirror the mathematical relationships underlying the Force itself, must be aligned with precision, measured in microscopic increments. The construction sequence includes extended meditation scenes where Luke communes with the spirits of past Jedi Masters, seeking their guidance in the creation of his weapon. These ghostly apparitions, achieved through practical effects that create an otherworldly atmosphere, offer cryptic advice about the balance between technology and spirituality that defines a true Jedi's relationship with their lightsaber. Most remarkably, the sequence shows Luke imbuing the weapon with aspects of his own personality and connection to the Force. As he works, the camera captures subtle changes in the lightsaber's components, as if they are being transformed from mere metal and crystal into something approaching living tissue. The weapon becomes an extension of Luke himself, a physical manifestation of his growth from impulsive farm boy to mature Jedi Knight. The deleted material includes scenes where Luke tests various combinations of components, each configuration producing a different color and quality of blade. The green crystal that eventually becomes his signature weapon is chosen not for its power, but for its harmony with Luke's natural force abilities. The deleted footage shows other possible combinations producing blades of blue, purple, and even silver, each one reflecting different aspects of Luke's personality and potential paths his training might have taken. The construction sequence culminates with Luke's first ignition of the completed lightsaber, and the deleted footage reveals that this moment was originally filmed as a spiritual awakening rather than simple mechanical activation. The green blade springs to life not with the mechanical snap heard in the final film, but with a sound that suggests the birth of something alive, something that shares Luke's connection to the living force. The scene continues with Luke practicing forms and techniques that demonstrate his complete mastery of lightsaber combat, movements that flow like water while carrying the devastating power of controlled lightning. These deleted training sequences show a Luke who has evolved far beyond the desperate, improvised fighting style displayed in his confrontation with Vader on Cloud City. Here is a warrior monk whose every gesture speaks of inner peace combined with deadly capability. The practice sequences reveal that Luke has somehow acquired knowledge of the 7 classical lightsaber combat forms, despite having no formal training beyond his brief time with Yoda. The deleted footage suggests that this knowledge comes through his connection to the Force itself, as if the weapon is teaching him how to wield it properly. Each form is demonstrated with balletic precision, from the basic but reliable Shicho to the aggressive power of DJM-So. Moving deeper into the Return of the Jedi archives, Marcus unveils footage that would have transformed Jabba's palace from a simple monster's lair into a complex political entity that mirrors the corruption and brutality of the Empire itself. The deleted sequences reveal a criminal organization that operates with the efficiency of a government and the ruthlessness of a war machine. The extended Jabba's Palace material introduces characters who were meant to play significant roles in illustrating the moral complexity of the galaxy's underworld. We meet Tessic, a Quarren accountant whose meticulous record-keeping enables Jabba's vast criminal enterprise, while slowly driving him insane with guilt over the suffering his efficiency enables. His deleted scenes reveal a character caught between professional pride and moral horror, desperately seeking redemption while lacking the courage to act on his convictions. The palace sequences include elaborate scenes of alien politics, as various criminal factions negotiate territorial agreements with the same formality that galactic senators once used to forge treaties. These meetings, conducted in multiple alien languages with subtitles providing translation, reveal a sophisticated criminal economy that spans multiple star systems and involves everything from spice smuggling to slave trading. Perhaps most significantly, the deleted palace sequences include extensive material featuring Ula, the Tweed dancer, whose brief appearance and tragic death in the final film barely hints at her original role. In the complete footage, Ula emerges as a complex character whose defiance of Jabba represents not just personal courage, but political resistance against the systematic oppression of her people. The deleted Ula material reveals that she is not simply a slave dancer, but an educated resistance fighter who allowed herself to be captured in order to gather intelligence about Jabba's operations. Her conversations with other slaves, conducted in whispered Twi'leki that the camera treats with the intimacy of prayer, reveal an underground network of rebellion that exists even within Jabba's palace, suggesting that the desire for freedom transcends species and circumstances. Her extended death sequence, far more elaborate and emotionally devastating than the brief moment that survived in the final film, shows her using her final moments to pass crucial information to other slaves, transforming her apparent defeat into a victory for the resistance movement. The sequence serves as a meditation on the nature of sacrifice and the way that individual acts of courage can inspire broader movements for change. The deleted Jabba material also includes scenes that explore the Hutt's psychology in ways that make him genuinely terrifying rather than simply grotesque. We see Jabba conducting business with Imperial officials, his negotiations revealing a mind that combines bestial appetites with shrewd political intelligence. These sequences show that Jabba's cooperation with the Empire represents more than simple criminal opportunism. He is actively participating in the systematic degradation of galactic civilization. The extended palace sequences include remarkable scenes where Jabba discusses philosophy and art with his guests, revealing a character whose monstrous appearance masks a sophisticated intellect. He speaks knowledgeably about ancient Hutt poetry, demonstrates an appreciation for classical music, and engages in complex theological discussions about the nature of power and corruption. These conversations make his casual cruelty all the more disturbing by showing that his evil is not the result of ignorance or animal instinct, but of conscious choice. The most haunting of the deleted palace sequences involves the fates of prisoners who preceded Han Solo in Jabba's collection. The extended footage reveals chambers beneath the palace where carbonite-frozen victims are stored like trophies, their faces capturing final moments of terror or desperation. Luke's discovery of these chambers during his infiltration adds psychological weight to his confrontation with Jabba, transforming their encounter from a simple rescue mission into a judgment upon evil itself. The throne room sequences with Emperor Palpatine represent some of the most philosophically complex material ever filmed for a Star Wars movie. The deleted footage extends the verbal sparring between Luke and the Emperor into a masterclass in the psychology of corruption. Ian McDiarmid's performance reaches levels of sinister sophistication that make his brief appearances in the final film seem like mere sketches of true evil. In the complete throne room sequences, the Emperor doesn't simply tempt Luke with power. He engages in sophisticated philosophical arguments about the nature of order, justice, and the necessity of strong leadership in a chaotic galaxy. The deleted dialogue reveals Palpatine as a character who genuinely believes in his own righteousness, a zealot whose conviction that the galaxy requires absolute control makes him far more dangerous than a simple megalomaniac. The extended temptation sequences show Luke being forced to confront uncomfortable truths about the rebellion's own capacity for violence and destruction. The Emperor presents him with holographic evidence of rebel attacks that resulted in civilian casualties, forcing Luke to acknowledge that even righteous causes exact terrible prices. These moral complexities, explored through dialogue that crackles with intellectual energy, would have elevated the final confrontation into something approaching genuine tragedy. The deleted Emperor material includes extensive scenes where Palpatine reveals his knowledge of galactic history, speaking of patterns of conflict that span millennia, and suggesting that his rule represents not tyranny but necessary evolution. He shows Luke visions of previous galactic wars, demonstrating how each conflict has grown more destructive than the last, arguing that only absolute authority can break the cycle of violence that threatens to destroy civilization itself. Perhaps most powerfully, the deleted footage includes extended sequences of Vader's internal struggle as he watches his son being tortured by his master. David Prowse's physical performance, combined with James Earl Jones's vocal work, creates moments of profound emotional resonance as the man who was once Anakin Skywalker slowly remembers what it means to love something more than power. The deleted Vader material includes scenes where he privately views recordings of Padme, moments of vulnerability that humanize the saga's primary antagonist without diminishing his menace. These sequences, filmed with the kind of intimate camera work usually reserved for love stories, show that beneath the mechanical breathing and imposing armor lies a soul that has been damaged but never entirely destroyed. The extended redemption sequence reveals that Vader's decision to save Luke is not a sudden impulse, but the culmination of a process that began the moment he learned of his son's existence. The deleted footage shows him making subtle preparations for his final confrontation with the Emperor, arrangements that suggest he has been planning his redemption even while serving the dark side. As Marcus carefully stores the last of the Return of the Jedi footage, the archive seems to exhale with the weight of completed stories that were never allowed their full expression. These deleted sequences represent more than simple character development. They are the emotional and philosophical foundation upon which the entire Star Wars mythology was meant to rest. The archive's modern wing stands in stark contrast to the classical film storage areas, its gleaming digital servers and climate-controlled chambers housing the deleted dreams of the prequel era. Marcus guides you through corridors lined with hard drives and memory banks, each one containing terabytes of footage that would have transformed the Star Wars prequels from divisive curiosities into the political epic that George Lucas originally envisioned. The very air here hums with electronic energy, as if the servers themselves are alive with the stories they contain. The prequels, Marcus begins, his voice taking on a different tone as he approaches a massive data storage array labeled Coruscant Political Sequences 1999 to 2005, were meant to be something unprecedented in popular cinema. Lucas conceived them not as simple adventure stories, but as a sophisticated examination of how democracies die, how good men become monsters, and how evil can triumph through the manipulation of noble ideals. The first drive Marcus accesses contains over 6 hours of deleted material from The Phantom Menace, scenes that would have established the political foundation upon which the entire prequel trilogy was meant to rest. As the high-definition footage begins to play on the archive's advanced viewing system, you witness a version of the Star Wars universe that operates according to recognizable political and economic realities rather than fairy tale logic. The extended Coruscant sequences reveal a galactic senate that functions as more than simple window dressing for the story's larger adventures. In the deleted footage, we see elaborate committee hearings where senators engage in sophisticated debates about taxation policy, trade regulation, and the balance between planetary autonomy and galactic unity. These scenes, dismissed by focus groups as boring, would have provided the political literacy necessary to understand how Palpatine's rise to power could seem both gradual and inevitable. The deleted Senate material includes remarkable sequences where senators from different species and cultures argue about fundamental questions of governance. A Rhodian representative passionately defends the rights of non-human species to maintain their traditional legal systems, while a human senator from the core worlds argues for standardized galactic law. These debates, scripted with the kind of attention to political theory usually reserved for historical dramas, reveal a government struggling with the same tensions between unity and diversity that challenge real-world democracies. The extended committee sequences show how legislation actually moves through the galactic government, revealing a process so complex and bureaucratic that meaningful change becomes virtually impossible. We see bills dying in subcommittees, amendments that gut the original intent of proposed laws, and procedural maneuvers that allow wealthy interests to delay or derail reforms that might threaten their power. These scenes provide crucial context for understanding why the Trade Federation felt confident that legal challenges to their blockade would be ineffective. Natalie Portman's Queen Amidala emerges in the deleted material as a character of remarkable political sophistication, far removed from the decorative figure that survived into the final films. Extended sequences show her engaging in complex negotiations with Trade Federation representatives, her dialogue revealing a deep understanding of economic theory and diplomatic strategy. These conversations, filmed with the kind of attention to detail usually reserved for historical dramas, demonstrate how a 14-year-old queen could realistically challenge an interstellar trade monopoly. The deleted Amidala material includes scenes where she consults with economic advisors, studying trade flow charts and taxation models with the dedication of a graduate student in political science. Her youth becomes an asset rather than a liability as she approaches problems with fresh perspectives, unclouded by years of political compromise. The deleted footage shows her developing strategies that combine idealistic goals with practical methods, demonstrating the kind of thoughtful leadership that the galaxy desperately needs. The deleted political material includes extensive scenes exploring the cultural and economic factors that led to the Trade Federation's blockade of Naboo. Rather than the simple villains presented in the final film, the Federation emerges as an organization driven by legitimate grievances against a Senate that has become increasingly corrupt and ineffective. Their methods are wrong, but their complaints about bureaucratic incompetence and political favoritism ring true in ways that make the conflict feel real rather than mythological. The extended Trade Federation sequences reveal a corporate culture that has gradually shifted from legitimate business to predatory exploitation. We see board meetings where executives discuss the systematic destruction of smaller competitors, the manipulation of trade routes to create artificial scarcities, and the use of their economic power to influence political decisions. These scenes, scripted with the kind of attention to corporate psychology found in the best business thrillers, show how organizations can become corrupted when profit becomes more important than purpose. Most significantly, the deleted Phantom Menace footage includes nearly 40 minutes of additional material featuring Senator Palpatine's political maneuvering behind the scenes. Ian McDiarmid's performance in these sequences reaches levels of subtle menace that make his later transformation into Emperor seem inevitable rather than surprising. We see him conducting private meetings with various senators, each conversation carefully crafted to plant seeds of doubt about the current leadership while positioning himself as the reasonable alternative. The deleted Palpatine material reveals the sophisticated psychological techniques he uses to manipulate those around him. Rather than relying on force powers or simple charisma, he employs the tried and true methods of real-world political manipulation, appealing to fear, exploiting existing prejudices, and offering simple solutions to complex problems. These scenes, played with McDiarmid's characteristic blend of warmth and menace, demonstrate how intelligent people can be led to support their own destruction. In one remarkable deleted sequence, Palpatine meets with Chancellor Valorum in the Chancellor's private office, expressing sympathy for the older politician's struggles while subtly undermining his confidence. The conversation unfolds like a masterclass in psychological manipulation, as Palpatine uses Valorum's own doubts against him, gradually convincing the Chancellor that his position is untenable and that stepping aside would be the noble thing to do. The extended Palpatine sequences also reveal his network of allies and agents throughout the galaxy, showing how he has spent years building the political infrastructure necessary for his eventual rise to power. We see him meeting with corporate executives, military officers, and even Jedi Masters, each conversation designed to advance his long-term goals while maintaining his reputation as a humble servant of democracy. Moving deeper into the prequel archives, Marcus accesses material from Attack of the Clones that would have elevated the film's romance subplot into something approaching genuine tragedy. The deleted sequences between Anakin and Padme unfold like chapters from a political thriller, their growing attraction complicated by the very real consequences of their potential relationship for galactic politics. The extended Naboo sequences reveal conversations where Padme discusses the burden of leadership with someone who understands the weight of destiny. Rather than the awkward romantic dialogue that survived into the final film, the deleted material shows two young people grappling with the conflict between personal desire and public duty. Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman's chemistry in these sequences suggests what might have been if their relationship had been allowed to develop naturally rather than being forced into the constraints of predetermined plot points. The deleted romance material includes scenes where Anakin and Padme discuss their different approaches to serving the greater good. Anakin speaks of his frustration with the Jedi Council's cautious approach to galactic problems, while Padme defends the slow but thorough methods of democratic governance. These philosophical differences, explored through intimate conversations in beautiful natural settings, provide crucial insight into the fundamental incompatibility that will eventually tear them apart. The deleted Attack of the Clones material also includes extensive exploration of the clone army's creation and the moral implications of using manufactured soldiers to fight a galactic war. Extended sequences on Kamino reveal conversations between Obi-Wan and the cloners that explore the ethics of creating sentient beings for the sole purpose of warfare. These discussions, filmed with documentary-like attention to detail, raise questions about identity, free will, and the nature of personhood that would have given the film philosophical weight equal to its visual spectacle. The Camino sequences include remarkable deleted scenes where Obi-Wan observes the clone training process, witnessing the systematic indoctrination that strips away individual personality in favor of military efficiency. The camera lingers on the faces of young clones as they recite loyalty oaths, their expressions revealing the human cost of creating an army of identical soldiers. These scenes provide crucial emotional context for understanding why the clone troopers can be turned against their Jedi commanders so easily. The deleted Camino material also includes extended conversations between Obi-Wan and Jango Fett that explore the bounty hunter's motivations for allowing his genetic material to be used for the clone army. Rather than simple mercenary greed, Fett emerges as a character driven by complex feelings about legacy, identity, and the desire to create something lasting from his own existence. His relationship with Boba, explored in greater depth through deleted scenes, reveals a man struggling to be both father and template. Perhaps most remarkably, the deleted prequel material includes scenes that explicitly connect the political themes to contemporary events without breaking the fourth wall of the story. The Trade Federation's complaints about Senate corruption echo real-world concerns about corporate influence in government, while Palpatine's rhetoric about security and order mirrors the language used by historical authoritarians throughout human history. The deleted political sequences include extended scenes where various senators debate the proper response to the separatist crisis, their arguments revealing different philosophies about the use of military force and the balance between security and freedom. These debates, scripted with the kind of attention to political theory found in the best historical dramas, would have provided audiences with the intellectual framework necessary to understand the larger themes the trilogy was exploring. The Revenge of the Sith archives contains some of the most emotionally devastating material ever filmed for a Star Wars movie. Sequences that would have transformed Anakin's fall to the dark side from a plot necessity into genuine tragedy. The deleted footage reveals a more gradual and psychologically believable transformation, showing Anakin's corruption as the result of systematic manipulation combined with his own character flaws rather than sudden moral collapse. Extended scenes between Anakin and Palpatine reveal the Chancellor's techniques in much greater detail. Rather than simply preying on Anakin's fears, Palpatine systematically undermines his students' faith in the Jedi Order by pointing out genuine flaws in their philosophy and methods. The deleted conversations show Palpatine as a master manipulator who never lies outright, but instead presents carefully selected truths in ways that lead Anakin to draw the conclusions Palpatine wants him to reach. The deleted Revenge of the Sith material includes scenes that would have made Anakin's slaughter of the younglings feel like the inevitable culmination of his psychological journey, rather than a shocking plot twist. Extended sequences show his growing paranoia and rage, his increasing conviction that the Jedi Order represents an obstacle to the peace and security he desperately wants to provide for Padme and their unborn child. Most powerfully, the deleted footage includes alternative versions of key scenes that explore the moral complexity of Anakin's choices. In one remarkable sequence that was cut just weeks before release, Anakin confronts a group of Jedi who are genuinely plotting against the Republic, validating Palpatine's claims about Jedi treachery, while simultaneously showing how truth can be twisted to serve evil purposes. The Extended Order 66 sequences represent some of the most emotionally devastating material in the entire Star Wars saga. Rather than the brief montage that survived into the final film, the deleted footage provides individual death sequences for dozens of Jedi characters, each one carefully crafted to maximize the emotional impact of their betrayal and murder. These scenes, filmed with the kind of intimate attention usually reserved for character studies, transform the Jedi Purge from a plot device into a genuine genocide that feels personal rather than abstract. The deleted Order 66 material includes heartbreaking scenes where clone troopers struggle with their programming, some managing to resist their orders long enough to warn their Jedi commanders, others breaking down completely under the weight of what they have been forced to do. We see clones who have served alongside their Jedi generals for years, suddenly turning their weapons on friends and mentors, their faces twisted with confusion and horror at actions they cannot control, but are compelled to perform. The extended clone trooper sequences reveal the full psychological horror of the inhibitor chip system, showing how the Republic's greatest strength becomes its ultimate weakness. The deleted footage includes scenes where individual clones fight against their programming, their internal struggle visible in their expressions as loyalty to their Jedi commanders wars with the irresistible compulsion to obey Order 66. Perhaps most significantly, the prequel archives contain hours of deleted material exploring the transformation of the Republic into the Empire, scenes that would have shown this process as the logical culmination of political trends rather than sudden change. Extended sequences in the Senate show senators enthusiastically supporting Palpatine's emergency powers, their enthusiasm driven not by mind control but by genuine fear and a desire for security at any cost. The deleted political material reveals that the Empire's rise was not the result of a single man's ambition, but rather the natural consequence of a political system that had become too complex and unwieldy to function effectively. Palpatine's genius lay not in creating the conditions for dictatorship, but in recognizing that those conditions already existed and positioning himself to take advantage of them when the moment came. The extended Senate sequences include remarkable scenes where Democratic senators voluntarily surrender their powers to the Chancellor, believing that temporary authoritarianism is preferable to the chaos of continued warfare. These scenes, scripted with attention to the historical patterns that have enabled real-world dictatorships, show how democracies can be destroyed by their own citizens, acting with the best of intentions. The deleted transformation sequences also include extended material showing the systematic elimination of political opposition, not through violent purges but through legal processes that gradually criminalize dissent. We see opposition senators being arrested on charges that are technically legitimate but politically motivated, their trials conducted with perfect adherence to legal procedure, even as justice is perverted to serve authoritarian ends. Most chillingly, the deleted material includes scenes where ordinary citizens celebrate the Empire's creation, viewing Palpatine's assumption of absolute power as a necessary response to the galactic crisis. These sequences, filmed with documentary-like attention to crowd psychology, show how populations can be manipulated into supporting their own oppression when that oppression is presented as protection. The deleted prequel material also includes extensive exploration of the Jedi Order's complicity in its own destruction, showing how their rigid adherence to tradition and their growing distance from the common people made them vulnerable to Palpatine's manipulations. Extended scenes reveal Jedi Masters making decisions based on political calculations rather than moral principles, their corruption subtle but real. The extended Jedi Council sequences show an organization that has become more concerned with maintaining its institutional power than serving the Force or protecting the innocent. The deleted conversations reveal masters who are aware of the growing darkness, but are paralyzed by their own bureaucratic procedures and political concerns. Their failure to act decisively when action might have prevented catastrophe makes their eventual destruction feel like cosmic justice rather than simple tragedy. As Marcus powers down the final server containing the prequel deleted scenes, the archive seems to exhale with the weight of political complexity that was deemed too sophisticated for popular entertainment. These sequences represent more than simple character development or world building. They are a comprehensive examination of how democratic institutions can be corrupted from within and how good people can be led to support evil through the manipulation of their noblest impulses. 6 hours, Marcus says softly. his voice heavy with the weight of lost political education. 6 hours of material that would have provided audiences with a sophisticated understanding of how tyranny rises and freedom dies. Instead, they received simplified morality tales that, while entertaining, could barely hint at the complex political realities that Lucas was trying to explore. The silence that follows feels heavy, with the weight of educational opportunities missed, of political wisdom that was sacrificed for commercial accessibility, of a trilogy that could have been a masterclass in democratic theory, but was instead reduced to spectacle. The servers around you continue their electronic humming, preserving stories that were never allowed to teach the lessons they were designed to convey. The newest section of the archive feels different from all the others. Its pristine digital storage systems and holographic displays speaking to the modern era of filmmaking, where every frame exists in perfect clarity, where deleted scenes are preserved in ultra-high definition that reveals every nuance of performance and emotion. Marcus leads you into a chamber that feels more like a space station command center than a traditional archive, its walls lined with servers that contain the abandoned dreams of the sequel trilogy. Here, Marcus says, his voice carrying a weight that speaks to more recent wounds, lie the fragments of what was meant to be the culmination of the entire Star Wars saga. 3 films that were designed to bring the story full circle, to answer questions that had been building for 40 years, to provide closure for characters and themes that had defined multiple generations. His hands move across a holographic interface, calling up files that glow with ethereal light in the chamber's dim atmosphere. The first collection of files Marcus accesses contains material from The Force Awakens that would have fundamentally altered our understanding of the sequel trilogy's central conflicts. The deleted footage reveals a version of the story where Luke Skywalker's absence from the galaxy was not the result of shame or despair, but part of a carefully orchestrated plan that spans decades and involves secrets that reach back to the very origins of the Jedi Order. The extended Luke backstory material includes scenes that were filmed but never integrated into the final narrative. Sequences showing Luke in the years following Return of the Jedi as he attempts to rebuild the Jedi Order from fragments of ancient knowledge. These deleted scenes reveal a man grappling with the weight of tradition, trying to understand which aspects of the old Jedi ways led to their downfall and which elements are essential to their survival. The deleted Luke material includes remarkable sequences where he discovers hidden Jedi archives on worlds that were thought lost, ancient libraries containing knowledge that the Emperor believed he had destroyed. These archaeological sequences, filmed with the reverence usually reserved for religious ceremonies, show Luke literally uncovering the philosophical foundations of what it means to be a Jedi in a galaxy that has moved beyond the simple moralities of the Empire versus Rebellion conflict. The extended Luke sequences also reveal his growing understanding that the Force itself is evolving, that the ancient Jedi and Sith represented only crude approximations of what Force sensitivity could become. The deleted footage shows him experiencing visions of possible futures where Force users transcend the limitations of light and dark side philosophy, achieving a kind of spiritual integration that previous generations could barely imagine. Most significantly, the deleted Force Awakens material includes extensive scenes establishing Rey's true origins, not as a Palpatine descendant, but as something far more mysterious and profound. The original footage reveals that Rey is not the granddaughter of the Emperor, but rather the first natural Force conception since Anakin Skywalker, a child born directly from the will of the Force itself as a response to the galaxy's desperate need for balance. The deleted Rey origin material includes sequences showing her earliest memories, fragmented visions of being hidden on Jakku, not by fleeing parents, but by Luke himself, who recognized her unique nature and understood that she needed to develop her abilities outside the constraints of traditional Jedi training. These memories, presented through dreamlike sequences that blur the line between reality and Force vision, reveal a character whose destiny was shaped by cosmic forces rather than family lineage. The extended Ray material also includes scenes showing her instinctive connection to ancient Force techniques that she has never been taught, abilities that manifest spontaneously when she encounters situations that require them. The deleted footage reveals her using Force powers that predate both Jedi and Sith traditions, techniques that suggest a direct connection to the living Force that bypasses the philosophical frameworks that have limited previous generations of Force users. The deleted Finn material represents perhaps the most significant character development loss in the entire sequel trilogy. The original sequences reveal a character whose stormtrooper background provides unique insights into the First Order's psychology and tactics, making him an invaluable strategic asset to the Resistance rather than simply a source of comic relief or romantic tension. The extended Finn sequences include scenes where he helps other defecting stormtroopers overcome their conditioning, serving as a counselor and guide for soldiers who are struggling to develop individual identities after years of systematic psychological suppression. These deleted scenes, filmed with documentary-like attention to the psychology of cult deprogramming, reveal Finn as a character with unique qualifications to understand and counter the First Order's most insidious weapon, their ability to transform children into willing instruments of oppression. The deleted Finn material also includes extensive scenes exploring his growing Force sensitivity, abilities that manifest not through traditional Jedi training, but through his deep empathetic connection to other people's suffering. The original footage shows him developing a kind of emotional Force perception that allows him to sense the psychological state of large groups, making him uniquely qualified to understand when populations are ready for liberation and when they still require careful preparation. The extended First Order material reveals an organization far more complex and psychologically sophisticated than the simple Empire copycat that appeared in the final films. The deleted sequences show a movement that has learned from the Empire's mistakes, understanding that lasting control requires not just military might, but genuine popular support built through systematic manipulation of culture, education, and information. The deleted First Order sequences include remarkable scenes showing their recruitment and indoctrination processes, revealing how they target not just children, but entire populations who have been left behind by the New Republic's focus on core world prosperity. These scenes, scripted with attention to real-world cult psychology and political radicalization, show how extremist movements can gain support by offering simple answers to complex problems and clear enemies to blame for systemic failures. The extended Supreme Leader Snoke material reveals a character whose origins reach back to the very beginnings of the Sith Order, a being who has survived for millennia by transferring his consciousness between different physical forms. The deleted scenes show him not as Palpatine's creation, but as his ancient rival, a dark side user who represents a different philosophical approach to wielding the Force for domination. The deleted Snoke material includes scenes where he discusses the limitations of the rule of two with Kylo Ren, explaining how the Sith tradition of master and apprentice has ultimately weakened the dark side by limiting its practitioners to crude emotional manipulation rather than sophisticated psychological control. These conversations, filled with references to Force philosophy that spans galactic history, reveal Snoke as a character who represents evolution beyond traditional Sith limitations. Moving deeper into the sequel archives, Marcus accesses material from The Last Jedi that would have fundamentally altered the film's themes and emotional impact. The deleted footage reveals extended sequences between Luke and Rey that explore not just lightsaber techniques, but the philosophical foundations of what it means to be a Force user in a galaxy that has moved beyond the simple conflicts that defined previous generations. The extended Luke and Rey training material includes scenes where Luke teaches her techniques for perceiving the Force as it truly exists, rather than as it has been interpreted by Jedi and Sith traditions. These deleted sequences show Rey learning to see the Force as a living system that connects all things rather than as a tool to be wielded for specific purposes, a perspective that fundamentally changes her approach to conflict resolution and power. The deleted Luke material also includes extensive scenes exploring his reasons for withdrawing from galactic affairs, revealing a character who has come to understand that his presence as a legendary figure actually inhibits the natural development of Force sensitivity in others. The original footage shows Luke recognizing that his mythology has become more important than his reality, and that stepping back is necessary to allow the Force to evolve beyond the limitations of past traditions. The extended Luke sequences include remarkable scenes where he communes with the spirits of past Jedi Masters, engaging in philosophical debates about the nature of legacy, responsibility, and the proper role of powerful individuals in shaping galactic destiny. These conversations, filmed with ethereal lighting and careful attention to the spiritual dimensions of the Force, reveal Luke as a character who has achieved a level of wisdom that transcends simple heroism. The deleted Rose Tico material represents one of the most significant character losses in modern cinema. Scenes that would have established her not as a simple mechanic, but as a brilliant engineer whose innovations could have revolutionized resistance tactics and strategy. The original footage reveals a character whose technical expertise is matched by her deep understanding of how social movements succeed or fail. The extended Rose material includes scenes where she develops new technologies that level the playing field between the Resistance and the First Order, creating weapons and defensive systems that rely on ingenuity rather than raw firepower. These deleted sequences, filmed with attention to the kind of innovative thinking that drives real-world technological revolutions, show Rose as a character who represents the triumph of creativity over brute force. The deleted Rose sequences also include extensive material exploring her relationship with her sister Paige and the broader network of Resistance supporters who operate behind enemy lines. These scenes reveal a character whose personal motivations are grounded in a sophisticated understanding of political resistance and the sacrifices required to challenge entrenched power structures. The extended Canto Bight sequences represent some of the most sophisticated political commentary ever filmed for a Star Wars movie. Scenes that would have explicitly connected the sequel trilogy's conflicts to contemporary issues of economic inequality and corporate power. The deleted footage reveals a location that serves not just as a den of vice, but as the financial heart of a galactic economy that profits from perpetual warfare. The deleted Canto Bight material includes scenes where Finn and Rose discover that many of the casino's patrons are arms dealers who sell weapons to both the First Order and the Resistance, maintaining the conflict as a profitable enterprise rather than seeking resolution. These revelations, presented through conversations that combine political sophistication with genuine moral outrage, would have elevated the sequel trilogy's themes from simple good versus evil to complex examinations of systemic corruption. The extended Canto Bight sequences also include material showing how the New Republic's failure to address economic inequality created the conditions that allowed the First Order to gain popular support. The deleted footage reveals populations who support authoritarian movements not out of evil impulses, but because they have been abandoned by democratic institutions that prioritize the interests of wealthy core worlds over struggling outer rim territories. Moving to the final film in the trilogy, Marcus accesses the Rise of Skywalker material that would have provided genuine resolution to the sequel trilogy's themes rather than simple plot conclusion. The deleted footage reveals extended sequences where Rey must choose between accepting her Palpatine heritage or forging an entirely new path that transcends both her biological legacy and the expectations placed on her by others. The extended Rey material includes scenes where she communes with the spirits of all previous Jedi, not just the voices heard in the final film, but actual conversations where she debates the merits of different approaches to wielding the Force. These deleted sequences show Rey coming to understand that she has the power to fundamentally reshape what it means to be a Force user, to create new traditions that avoid the mistakes of both Jedi and Sith philosophy. The deleted Rise of Skywalker material also includes extensive scenes exploring Ben Solo's redemption arc, showing his return to the light side as a gradual process rather than a sudden conversion. The original footage reveals a character whose struggle with his dark side legacy continues even after his decision to help Rey, making his ultimate sacrifice feel earned rather than convenient. The extended Ben Solo material includes remarkable scenes where he communes with the spirit of Anakin Skywalker, engaging in conversations about legacy, redemption, and the possibility of breaking cycles of violence that have defined their family for generations. These deleted sequences, filmed with attention to the mythological weight of the Skywalker legacy, provide emotional closure that connects the sequel trilogy to the broader themes of the entire saga. Perhaps most significantly, the deleted sequel trilogy material includes scenes that would have established a new generation of Force users who represent evolution beyond traditional Jedi and Sith limitations. The original footage shows Rey training students who combine Force sensitivity with technological innovation, creating a new kind of galactic guardian that is adapted to the realities of modern civilization rather than ancient traditions. As Marcus powers down the final holographic display, the archive seems to pulse with the energy of stories that were reshaped by corporate focus groups and marketing considerations rather than creative vision. The sequel trilogy, as originally conceived, represented not just continuation of the Star Wars saga, but evolution towards something entirely new, a mythology adapted to contemporary concerns while maintaining connection to timeless themes. 3 films, Marcus says softly, his voice carrying the weight of recent disappointments, that were meant to show how legends can evolve, how traditions can adapt, how even the most powerful mythologies must change to remain relevant. Instead, audiences received stories that retreated into familiar patterns, abandoning the bold vision that could have carried Star Wars into its next evolutionary phase. The silence that follows feels heavy with possibilities that were abandoned in favor of safe choices, of creative risks that were deemed too dangerous for a franchise worth billions of dollars, of a saga that was prevented from becoming what it was always meant to be, a living mythology that grows and changes with each generation that encounters it. Beyond the main film archives lies a specialized section that Marcus approaches with particular reverence, its walls lined with digital storage systems containing thousands of hours of animated content that was never completed, storylines that were abandoned mid-production, and character arcs that were severed before they could reach their intended conclusions. The lighting here is softer, more colorful, as if the very atmosphere reflects the vibrant worlds that live within these preserved files. The animated series, Marcus explains, as he interfaces with a massive server bank labeled Clone Wars Unfinished Business, were meant to be more than simple extensions of the film narratives. They were laboratories for exploring the deeper implications of the Star Wars universe, places where creators could examine the human cost of galactic conflict and the personal struggles of characters who exist in the shadows of the main saga's heroes. The first collection of files contains material from the Clone Wars that would have fundamentally altered our understanding of the prequel era's moral complexity. The deleted storylines reveal a war that was far more brutal and psychologically devastating than anything shown in the films, with both sides committing acts that blur the line between heroism and atrocity, in ways that would have prepared audiences for Anakin's eventual fall to the dark side. The extended Clone Wars material includes complete story arcs that were scripted, voice-recorded, and partially animated before being abandoned due to concerns about their mature themes. One particularly powerful sequence follows a group of clone troopers who discover evidence that their commanders are deliberately sending them on suicide missions to eliminate witnesses to war crimes. The deleted storyline explores their growing disillusionment with the Republic they were created to serve, providing crucial context for understanding how Order 66 could be implemented so efficiently. The abandoned clone trooper storylines include remarkable character development for individual soldiers who struggle to maintain their humanity while serving in a war that treats them as expendable resources. The deleted material reveals clones who develop PTSD, others who question the morality of their orders, and some who attempt to desert rather than participate in increasingly questionable military operations. These storylines, crafted with attention to real-world military psychology, would have provided emotional weight that made the clone army's betrayal of the Jedi feel like personal tragedy rather than simple plot twist. The deleted Clone Wars material also includes extensive exploration of Jedi characters who are gradually corrupted by the demands of military leadership, showing how the war transforms peacekeepers into generals and diplomats into tacticians. One particularly powerful abandoned arc follows a young Jedi Knight who begins using increasingly aggressive methods to achieve military objectives, his gradual embrace of necessary violence, providing a template for understanding how good people can be led to commit evil acts. The extended Jedi corruption storylines include scenes where council members debate the ethics of using clone soldiers, some arguing that the Republic's willingness to fight a war with manufactured beings represents a fundamental moral compromise that undermines everything the Jedi claim to stand for. These philosophical discussions, animated with careful attention to the emotional weight of moral dilemma, would have provided the ideological foundation for understanding why the Jedi Order was so vulnerable to Palpatine's manipulations. Perhaps most significantly, the deleted Clone Wars material includes storylines that explicitly connect the animated series to the sequel trilogy, revealing how characters and conflicts from the prequel era influenced events decades later. One abandoned arc shows Ahsoka Tano discovering ancient Sith artifacts that would later be used by Palpatine to create the Final Order fleet, providing narrative continuity that would have made the sequel trilogy's revelations feel inevitable rather than arbitrary. The extended Ahsoka material includes scenes where she grapples with her decision to leave the Jedi Order, conversations with Anakin that explore their different approaches to serving the Force and protecting the innocent. These deleted sequences reveal a character whose spiritual journey parallels and contrasts with her former master's fall to the dark side, showing how similar circumstances can lead to dramatically different outcomes depending on individual choice and character. The abandoned Ahsoka storylines also include material that would have established her as a bridge between different eras of Star Wars history, a character whose experiences with both the Republic and the Empire provide unique insights into the galactic conflicts that define the saga. The deleted scenes show her developing a philosophy of Force use that transcends traditional Jedi limitations while avoiding the corruption that destroyed the Sith. Moving deeper into the animated archives, Marcus accesses material from Star Wars Rebels that would have fundamentally altered the series' relationship to the original trilogy. The deleted storylines reveal a more complex and morally ambiguous rebellion, one where idealistic freedom fighters must make compromises that threaten their souls in order to achieve victory against an overwhelmingly powerful enemy. The extended Rebels material includes storylines where rebel cells engage in acts that would be considered terrorism if performed by real-world insurgent groups, operations that target civilian infrastructure and result in collateral damage that haunts the characters responsible. These deleted sequences, animated with careful attention to the psychological impact of guerrilla warfare, would have provided a more realistic portrayal of armed resistance and the moral complexities inherent in fighting authoritarian regimes. The abandoned Rebel storylines also include extensive exploration of Imperial characters who are not simply evil, but rather ordinary people serving what they believe to be a legitimate government. The deleted material reveals Imperial officers who genuinely believe in the Empire's mission to bring order to a chaotic galaxy, soldiers who see the rebels as dangerous terrorists threatening peaceful civilians. These character studies, crafted with attention to the psychology of authoritarianism, would have provided depth and nuance to conflicts that the films could only sketch in broad strokes. The deleted Rebels material includes particularly powerful storylines focusing on Agent Callus and his gradual disillusionment with Imperial service, sequences that show his transformation from loyal operative to rebel sympathizer as a realistic psychological journey rather than sudden conversion. The abandoned scenes reveal a character whose change of allegiance is driven not by dramatic revelation but by accumulated evidence that the system he serves is fundamentally corrupt. Perhaps most remarkably, the deleted Rebels material includes storylines that would have directly connected the series to The Force Awakens, showing how Imperial remnants evolved into the First Order and how Rebel Alliance veterans struggled to prevent the same patterns of conflict from repeating in the next generation. These abandoned arcs reveal a galaxy where victory over the Empire led not to lasting peace but to new forms of authoritarianism that learned from their predecessors' mistakes. The extended First Order origin material includes scenes showing Imperial officers who escape into the unknown regions, where they spend decades building a new kind of totalitarian movement that combines military efficiency with sophisticated psychological manipulation. These deleted sequences reveal the First Order as an organization that represents evolution rather than simple repetition, a threat that is more dangerous than the Empire because it has learned to adapt to changing galactic circumstances. Moving to more recent animated content, Marcus accesses material from the Bad Batch that would have provided crucial connections between the prequel and original trilogies, storylines that explore how the galaxy transitions from Republic to Empire and how individuals adapt to rapidly changing political realities. The deleted sequences reveal a more complex and gradual transformation, showing how democratic institutions are systematically dismantled rather than suddenly replaced. The extended Bad Batch material includes storylines where clone troopers struggle with their role in the new Imperial military, some embracing their new identity as servants of order, while others resist the transformation of their purpose from protecting the Republic to enforcing Imperial rule. These deleted sequences, crafted with attention to the psychology of institutional change, would have provided insight into how military organizations can be converted from democratic to authoritarian service. The abandoned Bad Batch storylines also include extensive exploration of how civilian populations adapt to Imperial rule, showing some communities that welcome the stability and security that authoritarian government provides, while others resist through passive and active means. These character studies reveal a galaxy where the Empire's rise is not universally opposed but rather reflects genuine political divisions about the proper role of government in maintaining order. The deleted Bad Batch material includes particularly powerful sequences showing the fate of Jedi survivors who avoided Order 66, revealing how they adapt to life as hunted fugitives while struggling to maintain their connection to the Force and their commitment to serving others. These storylines, animated with careful attention to the psychology of survival under persecution, would have provided emotional context for understanding Luke's eventual importance as a symbol of hope for Force users throughout the galaxy. The extended Jedi Survivor material includes scenes where former Jedi Knights grapple with questions about whether they should attempt to continue their mission or hide completely to avoid endangering innocent people. These moral dilemmas, explored through conversations that combine philosophical depth with genuine emotional weight, reveal characters whose spiritual journey continues even under the most adverse circumstances. Perhaps most significantly, the animated archives contain material that was meant to bridge the gap between different Star Wars media, creating a unified narrative that would have connected films, television series, books, and games into a coherent mythology. The deleted storylines reveal characters and events that were designed to appear across multiple platforms, providing audiences with a comprehensive understanding of galactic history that no single medium could contain. The cross-platform material includes storylines where animated characters would have appeared in live-action films, where events from television series would have directly influenced movie plots, and where choices made in interactive media would have affected outcomes in traditional narrative formats. These ambitious plans, abandoned due to logistical and creative challenges, would have created a truly immersive Star Wars universe where every story element contributed to a larger mythological whole. The deleted cross-platform material also includes extensive world building that was meant to establish consistent rules for how the Force works, how galactic politics function, and how different species and cultures interact across the galaxy. These background details, crafted with encyclopedic attention to internal consistency, would have provided the foundation for unlimited story expansion while maintaining thematic and factual continuity. As Marcus powers down the animated archive systems, the colorful glow fades from the chamber, leaving behind the same sterile illumination that characterizes the rest of the facility. The silence that follows feels heavy with creative potential that was constrained by practical limitations, of ambitious visions that were reduced to more manageable scope, of a unified Star Wars mythology that remains fractured across different media and creative teams. Thousands of hours, Marcus says softly, his voice carrying the weight of narrative possibilities that were never fully realized. Stories that would have created true continuity across the entire Star Wars universe. Characters whose journeys would have spanned decades of galactic history. Themes that would have provided philosophical foundation for understanding the deepest meanings embedded in this mythology. The animated archives represent more than simple entertainment expansion. They are evidence of creative ambition that sought to transform Star Wars from a collection of separate stories into a living mythology that could grow and evolve across multiple generations of creators and audiences. The deletion of these storylines represents not just the loss of individual narratives, but the abandonment of a vision that could have made Star Wars into something unprecedented in popular culture. In the deepest corner of the archive, Marcus leads you to a section that feels different from all the others, its atmosphere heavy with a more personal kind of loss. Here the preserved footage is accompanied by interviews, behind-the-scenes documentaries, and personal recordings that reveal the human stories behind every editorial decision. The walls are lined not just with film canisters and digital drives, but with photographs, letters, and personal artifacts that speak to the emotional cost of creating and then abandoning artistic vision. Every cut, Marcus begins, his voice taking on a more intimate tone as he approaches a collection of materials labeled personal archives, represents more than lost screen time. Behind every deleted scene stands an actor who poured their heart into a performance that no one would ever see. A director who fought to preserve their vision only to watch it disappear. A craftsperson whose finest work was relegated to the shadows of what might have been. The first collection Marcus opens contains extensive interview footage with Mark Hamill, recorded during various stages of the original trilogy's production and spanning decades of subsequent reflection on his experiences as Luke Skywalker. The deleted interview material reveals an actor whose understanding of his character was far more complex and nuanced than the somewhat naive hero who appeared in the final films. In these extended interviews, Hamill discusses his preparation for scenes that were ultimately cut, describing how he developed internal monologues and emotional backstory for moments that audiences would never witness. The deleted interview footage shows him explaining his interpretation of Luke's psychological journey, particularly the extended Dagobah training sequences and the original lightsaber construction scene, revealing an actor who was fully committed to portraying a character whose spiritual transformation was as important as his external adventures. The Hamill interview material includes particularly poignant discussions of his work on scenes that explored Luke's relationship with his father. Deleted moments where the young Jedi grapples not just with Vader's identity, but with the implications of inherited evil and the possibility of redemption. These conversations, recorded with documentary-like intimacy, reveal an actor who understood that his character's journey was fundamentally about the nature of choice versus destiny. Perhaps most remarkably, the deleted Hamill interviews include his reflections on returning to the role for the sequel trilogy, discussing how his understanding of Luke's character had evolved over the decades, and how he approached playing an older, wiser version of the hero he had originally portrayed as a young man. These conversations reveal the depth of thought that went into performances that were ultimately altered or removed from the final films. The archive also contains extensive material featuring Carrie Fisher, whose deleted scenes and behind-the-scenes interviews reveal an actress and writer whose contributions to the Star Wars saga extended far beyond her on-screen performances. The preserved footage shows Fisher engaging in script discussions, offering dialogue suggestions, and providing insights into character motivation that influenced scenes she never appeared in. The deleted Fisher material includes remarkable behind-the-scenes footage of her working with other actors, helping them develop their characters and understand the emotional stakes of scenes that would later be cut from the films. These sequences reveal an artist whose collaborative spirit and creative intelligence made everyone around her perform better, whose presence elevated not just her own scenes but the entire production. The Fisher interviews include particularly powerful discussions of her work on the sequel trilogy, recorded during breaks in filming The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. These conversations reveal an actress who was fully committed to exploring how Leia had evolved from rebel princess to political leader to spiritual guide, character development that was partially lost when her scenes were trimmed for pacing considerations. Most poignantly, the archive contains Fisher's final interview sessions, recorded just weeks before her death, where she discusses her hopes for Leia's character arc in The Rise of Skywalker, and her understanding of how the character's journey was meant to conclude. These conversations, preserved with the reverence usually reserved for historical documents, provide insight into performances that could never be completed, and story resolutions that had to be reimagined after her passing. The archive's collection of director interviews reveals the creative struggles and compromises that shaped every Star Wars film, showing how artistic vision was constantly balanced against commercial pressures, technical limitations, and studio demands. The extended interview footage with George Lucas spans decades of reflection on his original concepts and the ways they were modified during production and post-production. The deleted Lucas interviews include extensive discussions of his original 12-film concept for the Star Wars saga, revealing how economic and practical considerations forced him to condense his vision into a more manageable scope. These conversations provide insight into storylines that were abandoned not because they lacked merit, but because they exceeded the resources available for their realization. The Lucas material also includes behind-the-scenes footage showing him directing scenes that were ultimately cut, revealing a filmmaker whose attention to detail and emotional investment remained constant even when working on material he knew might not survive the editing process. These sequences show an artist who approached every scene as if it were crucial to the final film, regardless of its uncertain fate. The archive contains particularly revealing interviews with Irvin Kershner, the director of The Empire Strikes Back, discussing his approach to the more complex psychological material that was removed from the final film. These conversations reveal a filmmaker who was committed to exploring the spiritual and philosophical dimensions of the Star Wars universe, even when those elements were deemed too sophisticated for the target audience. The Kershner interviews include discussions of his collaboration with Frank Oz on the extended Yoda sequences, revealing how the puppet master and director worked together to create performances that would have elevated the character from wise teacher to genuine spiritual guide. These behind-the-scenes glimpses show the artistic partnership that created some of the most profound moments in the entire saga, moments that were then trimmed to their barest essentials. Moving deeper into the personal archives, Marcus accesses material featuring the special effects artists, costume designers, and other craftspeople whose work was often completed for scenes that never made it to the final films. The deleted behind-the-scenes material reveals the emotional investment that technical artists put into creations that might never be seen by audiences. The special effects interviews include extensive discussions with Phil Tippett, Dennis Muren, and other artists who created elaborate sequences that were cut for time or budget considerations. These conversations reveal professionals who approached their craft with the dedication of fine artists, creating effects that were technically and aesthetically superior to what was required, only to see their finest work relegated to deleted scene collections or lost entirely. The deleted special effects material includes remarkable footage of creature creation, model construction, and practical effects work that pushed the boundaries of what was technically possible during each era of Star Wars production. These behind-the-scenes sequences reveal the innovation and artistry that went into every aspect of the films, even elements that audiences would never have the opportunity to appreciate. The costume and makeup interviews reveal similar dedication from artists who created elaborate designs for characters who appeared only briefly or were cut entirely from the final films. The deleted material includes extensive footage of makeup tests, costume fittings, and design processes that show the incredible attention to detail that went into every aspect of the Star Wars universe. The costume design material includes particularly poignant interviews with designers discussing their work on background characters and secondary figures whose stories were reduced or eliminated during editing. These conversations reveal artists who approached every design challenge with the same creativity and commitment, regardless of how prominent the character would be in the final film. The archive also contains extensive material featuring the voice actors, musicians, and sound designers whose contributions to the Star Wars saga often went unrecognized, particularly when their work was created for scenes that were ultimately deleted. The preserved interviews reveal artists whose creative contributions were essential to the film's emotional impact, but who rarely received public acknowledgement for their efforts. The voice acting interviews include extensive discussions with James Earl Jones about his approach to Darth Vader, revealing how his performance evolved through different films and how he prepared for scenes that were later cut. These conversations show an artist whose understanding of the character deepened over decades, whose vocal performance became increasingly nuanced even when working on material that might not survive the editing process. The John Williams interviews represent some of the most emotionally powerful material in the entire archive, revealing a composer whose musical contributions to deleted scenes often exceeded the quality of his work for material that remained in the final films. The preserved footage shows Williams discussing how he approached scoring scenes that might be cut, revealing an artist who maintained his commitment to excellence regardless of a scene's uncertain fate. The Williams material includes remarkable behind-the-scenes footage of recording sessions for deleted scenes, showing the composer working with orchestral musicians to create music that perfectly captured the emotional essence of moments that audiences would never experience. These sessions reveal the collaborative artistry that went into every aspect of Star Wars production, even elements that were destined for obscurity. Perhaps most poignantly, the archive contains material featuring actors who were hired for roles that were significantly reduced or eliminated entirely during editing. These interviews reveal performers who prepared extensively for characters whose stories were never fully told, who developed emotional connections to roles that would provide them with only minimal screen time or complete anonymity. The deleted actor interviews include discussions with performers who played Jedi Council members, Imperial officers, Rebel pilots, and other supporting characters whose individual stories were crafted with care, only to be subsumed into background action or removed entirely. These conversations reveal the human cost of editorial decisions, showing how cuts that seem purely technical actually affect real people who invested their creativity and emotional energy in bringing characters to life. The supporting actor material includes particularly moving interviews with performers who were cut from their first Star Wars appearances, some of whom never had another opportunity to participate in the saga despite their enthusiasm and preparation. These conversations reveal the personal disappointment that accompanies professional setbacks, showing how creative ambitions can be frustrated by practical necessities. As Marcus carefully closes the final interview collection, the personal archive section seems to exhale with the weight of human stories that parallel the fictional narratives preserved elsewhere in the facility. These behind-the-scenes materials reveal that every deleted scene represents not just lost story content, but lost opportunities for artists to share their vision with the world. Every cut, Marcus repeats, his voice heavy with understanding of the human cost behind editorial decisions, affects real people who poured their hearts into work that was deemed expendable. The deleted scenes represent not just missing pieces of the Star Wars story, but missing pieces of the artists who created them. The silence that follows feels heavy, with recognition of the personal sacrifices that accompany artistic creation, of the emotional investment that continues even when work is destined for obscurity, of the human stories that exist behind every creative decision. The personal archives serve as a reminder that filmmaking is ultimately a collaborative human endeavor, where every cut represents not just narrative choice, but the lived experience of real people whose contributions deserve recognition even when they remain hidden from public view. In a specialized analysis chamber deep within the archive, Marcus leads you to a space that feels more like a research laboratory than a storage facility. The walls are lined with sophisticated computers running pattern recognition software, their screens displaying complex data visualizations that map the connections between thousands of deleted scenes across decades of Star Wars production. Here, the scattered fragments of lost footage have been analyzed not as individual curiosities, but as pieces of a larger puzzle that reveals fundamental truths about how popular entertainment is shaped by forces beyond simple creative vision. After 40 years of accumulating deleted material, Marcus explains, as he activates the analysis systems, certain patterns become impossible to ignore. The cuts were not random editorial decisions or simple responses to runtime constraints. They reveal systematic biases in what kinds of stories our culture considers suitable for mass consumption, what themes are deemed too complex for popular entertainment, and how commercial considerations shape the mythology that defines our collective imagination. The first pattern that emerges from the data analysis focuses on the consistent removal of spiritual and philosophical content from across all eras of Star Wars production. The computer displays a timeline showing how scenes exploring the deeper mysteries of the Force, conversations about the nature of consciousness and identity, and extended meditation sequences were systematically eliminated from every film in the saga. The spiritual content analysis reveals that over 12 hours of material dealing explicitly with Force philosophy was removed from the original trilogy alone, scenes that would have established Star Wars as a genuine exploration of Eastern religious concepts adapted for Western audiences. The deleted Dagobah sequences, when viewed as a complete narrative, represent a sophisticated introduction to Buddhist and Taoist concepts of consciousness, suffering, and enlightenment that was deemed too esoteric for mainstream appeal. The pattern extends through the prequel trilogy, where extensive scenes exploring Jedi philosophy and the political implications of religious authority were cut to make room for action sequences and romantic subplot. The deleted material reveals that Lucas had conceived the prequels as an examination of how religious institutions can become corrupted by political power, a theme that was largely abandoned in favor of more straightforward adventure storytelling. The sequel trilogy continues this pattern, with extensive scenes exploring Rey's spiritual awakening and Luke's philosophical evolution removed in favor of plot advancement and spectacle. The deleted material shows that the sequel trilogy was originally conceived as an exploration of how spiritual traditions evolve and adapt to changing circumstances, themes that were simplified or eliminated to maintain accessibility for international audiences. The second major pattern revealed by the analysis focuses on the systematic removal of political complexity from across the entire saga. The computers display evidence showing how scenes that explored the nuances of governmental corruption, the psychology of authoritarianism, and the moral ambiguity of armed resistance were consistently simplified or eliminated to avoid alienating audiences with challenging political content. The political analysis reveals that the prequel trilogy originally contained nearly 8 hours of material that would have provided a sophisticated examination of how democratic institutions fail and how good people can be manipulated into supporting tyranny. These scenes, removed due to concerns about their relevance to contemporary politics, would have elevated Star Wars from entertainment to genuine political education. The deleted political material includes extensive exploration of economic factors that drive galactic conflict, scenes showing how corporate interests manipulate governmental policy, and character studies that reveal how ordinary citizens become complicit in authoritarian systems. This content, deemed too controversial for family entertainment, would have provided audiences with intellectual tools for understanding real-world political challenges. The pattern of political simplification extends to the original trilogy, where scenes exploring the moral costs of rebellion and the challenges of governing after revolution were cut to maintain clear distinctions between good and evil. The deleted material reveals that the Rebel Alliance was originally conceived as a more complex organization struggling with internal divisions and questionable tactics, complexity that was abandoned in favor of straightforward heroic narrative. The third pattern identified by the analysis focuses on character development that was sacrificed for plot advancement, particularly scenes that would have shown gradual psychological change rather than dramatic transformation. The computers reveal how extended character arcs were consistently shortened to accommodate action sequences and special effects showcases. The character development analysis shows that every major character in the Star Wars saga had substantial psychological journey material removed from their stories. Luke's gradual transformation from naive farm boy to mature Jedi Knight was compressed into brief moments that could only hint at the internal work required for such fundamental change. Anakin's fall to the dark side was simplified from a complex psychological breakdown into a series of dramatic plot points that made his corruption seem arbitrary rather than inevitable. The deleted character material includes extensive exploration of supporting figures whose stories would have provided depth and context for the main narrative. Secondary characters like Biggs Darklighter, Rose Tico, and Finn had complete character arcs that were reduced to plot functions when their psychological development was deemed less important than advancing the central story. The pattern of character simplification reveals a systematic bias toward external action over internal transformation, spectacle over psychology, and plot advancement over emotional development. The deleted material shows that Star Wars was originally conceived as character-driven drama that happened to include spectacular action, but was gradually transformed into action-driven spectacle that included minimal character development. The fourth pattern, revealed by the analysis, focuses on the removal of material that challenged audience expectations or subverted traditional narrative structures. The computers show how scenes that would have complicated simple moral categories, questioned heroic assumptions, or provided alternative perspectives on familiar events were systematically eliminated to maintain audience comfort. The expectation-challenging analysis reveals that each trilogy contained material that would have fundamentally altered how audiences understood the Star Wars universe. The original trilogy included scenes showing the moral costs of the Rebel Alliance's tactics, the psychological damage inflicted on Imperial soldiers, and the complexity of governing a galaxy after successful revolution. The prequel trilogy contained extensive material exploring the Jedi Order's complicity in their own destruction, the legitimate grievances that motivated separatist movements, and the ways that well-intentioned people can be manipulated into supporting evil. This material, removed to avoid confusing audiences about who to support, would have provided a more nuanced understanding of political conflict. The sequel trilogy originally included scenes that challenged the mythology created by previous films, showing how legends can become obstacles to progress and how hero worship can prevent genuine problem-solving. These meta-textual elements, deemed too sophisticated for the target audience, would have allowed Star Wars to comment on its own cultural impact while telling its story. The fifth pattern identified by the analysis focuses on the systematic removal of content that would have required audiences to engage with complex moral questions rather than simply choosing sides in clearly defined conflicts. The deleted material reveals that Star Wars was originally conceived as a mythology that would challenge viewers to think critically about power, authority, and responsibility. The moral complexity analysis shows how scenes exploring the ethics of violence, the responsibilities of power, and the unintended consequences of heroic action were consistently removed to maintain clear moral categories. The deleted material includes extensive exploration of how good intentions can lead to harmful outcomes, how necessary actions can exact terrible costs, and how even heroes must make choices that compromise their ideals. The pattern of moral simplification reveals a systematic bias toward providing audiences with clear guidance about right and wrong, rather than encouraging them to grapple with ambiguous situations that require careful thought and personal judgment. The deleted material shows that Star Wars could have functioned as a tool for moral education, challenging viewers to develop their own ethical frameworks rather than simply accepting predetermined categories. The sixth, and perhaps most significant pattern revealed by the analysis focuses on the removal of material that would have established Star Wars as a living mythology capable of evolving and adapting to changing cultural circumstances. The computers show how scenes that connected the saga to contemporary issues, referenced real-world problems, or suggested that the story's themes had ongoing relevance were systematically eliminated to maintain timeless appeal. The evolutionary mythology analysis reveals that Lucas and subsequent creators originally conceived Star Wars as a framework for exploring whatever issues were most pressing for each generation of audiences. The deleted material includes references to environmental destruction, corporate power, technological alienation, and other concerns that would have made the saga feel relevant to contemporary viewers rather than simply nostalgic. The pattern of temporal disconnection shows how Star Wars was gradually transformed from a living mythology that could comment on current events into a historical artifact that existed in its own isolated universe. The deleted material reveals connections to real-world issues that would have made the saga a tool for understanding contemporary challenges rather than an escape from them. As the analysis computers complete their processing and display their final conclusions, the chamber fills with the soft hum of cooling systems and data storage drives. The patterns revealed by decades of systematic cutting show that the deleted scenes represent more than simple editorial decisions. They constitute evidence of cultural biases about what kinds of stories are considered suitable for mass consumption. The comprehensive pattern analysis reveals that Star Wars, as originally conceived across all its iterations, was meant to be a sophisticated examination of power, spirituality, politics, and human nature that was gradually simplified into straightforward entertainment that avoided challenging audiences with complex ideas. The deleted material represents not just lost story content, but lost opportunities for popular culture to engage with the deepest questions of human existence. The patterns don't lie, Marcus says quietly, as he powers down the analysis systems. Every cut reveals a choice between complexity and simplicity, between challenging audiences and entertaining them, between creating art that transforms consciousness and producing content that merely occupies attention. The deleted scenes show us not just what Star Wars was meant to be, but what our culture fears to become: thoughtful, questioning, and genuinely transformative. The silence that follows feels heavy with recognition that the patterns revealed by the analysis extend far beyond Star Wars itself, representing broader cultural tendencies that shape all popular entertainment. The deleted scenes serve as evidence of possibilities that were abandoned not because they lacked merit, but because they required audiences to engage with ideas that commercial entertainment typically avoids. The pattern analysis chamber stands as a monument to roads not taken, to creative visions that were deemed too ambitious for their intended medium, and to the ongoing tension between art and commerce that shapes every aspect of contemporary culture. The patterns revealed here suggest that the deleted scenes of Star Wars represent not just missing pieces of a beloved saga, but missing pieces of our collective cultural development. Beyond the official archives lies a section that pulses with different energy entirely, its chambers filled with the passionate dedication of individuals who have devoted their lives to preserving and restoring the deleted fragments of Star Wars history. Marcus leads you into a space that feels more like a monastery than a storage facility, where digital archaeologists work with religious devotion to recover, enhance, and share the lost pieces of galactic mythology with a community of believers who understand that these fragments represent more than simple entertainment curiosities. Here, Marcus explains, as you enter a workshop where multiple restoration stations hum with quiet activity, we encounter something unprecedented in the history of popular culture, a global community of preservationists who have taken it upon themselves to serve as guardians of deleted dreams. These are not professional archivists or corporate employees, but passionate individuals who recognize that the deleted scenes represent cultural artifacts too precious to remain lost. The first restoration station you encounter is dedicated to the painstaking work of digital enhancement and recovery, where technicians use cutting-edge software to improve the quality of deleted footage that was preserved in suboptimal conditions. The screens display before and after comparisons that seem almost magical in their transformation of degraded footage into crystal-clear imagery that rivals the quality of officially released material. The digital restoration process reveals the incredible sophistication of modern preservation technology. Frame-by-frame analysis allows restorers to remove film grain, correct color balance, and even reconstruct damaged portions of footage using advanced algorithms that can predict what missing visual information should look like based on surrounding context. The restored footage emerges from this process looking better than it did during its original production, as if the passage of time has somehow improved rather than degraded its quality. The restoration team includes experts in film chemistry, digital imaging, and audio engineering who work together to address different aspects of preservation and enhancement. Their collaboration creates a multidisciplinary approach to cultural preservation that combines traditional archival techniques with cutting-edge technology, producing results that exceed what either approach could achieve independently. One particularly remarkable restoration project focuses on the legendary Luke lightsaber construction sequence, where restorers have combined multiple sources of surviving footage, behind-the-scenes material, and even audio outtakes to create a complete version of the scene that was never officially assembled. The restoration process required months of detective work to identify all existing source material, followed by careful digital compositing to create a seamless narrative that honors the original creative intent. The lightsaber construction restoration includes enhanced audio that was reconstructed from multiple sources, including alternate takes, rehearsal recordings, and even lip-reading analysis of silent footage to determine what dialogue was originally intended. The final result represents a collaboration between official source material and fan dedication that produces something closer to the original creative vision than any officially released version. Moving deeper into the restoration facility, you encounter a section dedicated to fan preservation projects that go beyond simple restoration to include creative completion of abandoned storylines. Here, passionate creators work to finish animated sequences that were never completed, to realize screenplay material that was never filmed, and to create the closure that commercial considerations prevented the original creators from providing. The fan completion projects represent a form of cultural archaeology that goes beyond preservation to include active creation, as dedicated fans use their skills in animation, voice acting, and music composition to complete stories that were left unfinished by their original creators. These projects operate in the gray area between restoration and creation, honoring original creative intent while adding elements that are necessary to achieve narrative completion. One remarkable fan completion project focuses on the unfinished Clone Wars story arcs, where teams of volunteer animators have spent years creating finished episodes from surviving script material, voice recordings, and rough animation tests. The completed episodes achieve professional quality while maintaining absolute fidelity to the original creative vision, providing closure for storylines that were abandoned due to production constraints rather than creative choice. The Clone Wars completion project includes original voice acting by professional performers who studied the existing character performances to achieve perfect consistency with the established character portrayals. The project also includes original music composition that maintains John Williams's musical themes while expanding them to accommodate new narrative content, creating seamless integration between official and fan-created material. The restoration facility also houses projects dedicated to preserving and sharing the cultural context that surrounded deleted scenes, including production histories, creator interviews, and analysis of why specific material was cut. These contextual preservation efforts recognize that understanding the circumstances behind editorial decisions is as important as preserving the deleted material itself. The contextual preservation projects include extensive documentation of the political, economic, and cultural pressures that influenced editing decisions throughout Star Wars history. This material reveals how external factors ranging from international market considerations to studio executive preferences shaped the final films in ways that had nothing to do with creative vision or artistic merit. Perhaps most remarkably, the restoration facility includes a section dedicated to theoretical reconstruction projects, where teams of researchers and creators work to imagine what the complete Star Wars saga might have looked like if commercial constraints had not forced the abandonment of Lucas's original vision. These projects combine surviving deleted material with informed speculation to create comprehensive alternate versions of the entire mythology. The theoretical reconstruction projects include complete alternate cuts of existing films that integrate all known deleted material, extended storylines that fill gaps in character development, and even speculative completion of the abandoned sequel and prequel concepts that were never realized. These projects represent the ultimate expression of fan dedication, attempting to resurrect not just individual scenes but entire creative visions that were deemed too ambitious for realization. The restoration facility operates according to principles that prioritize cultural preservation over legal or commercial considerations, recognizing that deleted scenes represent important cultural artifacts regardless of their official status. The preservationists work within a philosophical framework that treats these materials as belonging to the global community rather than to any specific corporation or individual. The preservation philosophy includes careful attention to maintaining the integrity of original creative intent while making the material accessible to contemporary audiences. This approach requires constant balancing between historical accuracy and practical accessibility, ensuring that restored material serves both scholarly research and popular appreciation. The community aspect of the restoration effort represents perhaps its most remarkable characteristic, as thousands of individuals from around the world contribute their skills, resources, and passion to preserve and share deleted Star Wars material. This global collaboration operates through online networks that coordinate preservation efforts, share technical expertise, and distribute completed restoration projects to audiences who hunger for access to the complete Star Wars mythology. The restoration community includes professional filmmakers, technology experts, and passionate fans who work together without financial compensation, motivated entirely by their dedication to preserving cultural history. Their collaboration creates a model for community-based cultural preservation that could be applied to other entertainment properties that have similar issues with lost or deleted content. The distribution networks created by the restoration community operate through carefully designed systems that maximize access while minimizing legal risk, using peer-to-peer sharing, international hosting, and other techniques that ensure restored material remains available regardless of corporate attempts to restrict access. These distribution methods reflect a philosophical commitment to treating cultural artifacts as common heritage rather than private property. The legal and ethical challenges facing the restoration community create ongoing tension between preservation goals and intellectual property law, forcing preservationists to operate in gray areas where their cultural contributions may conflict with corporate interests. The community has developed sophisticated approaches to these challenges that prioritize preservation while minimizing legal exposure. The ethical framework that guides restoration efforts includes careful attention to respecting the wishes of original creators while serving the broader cultural interest in preservation and access. This approach requires ongoing dialogue about the proper balance between creator rights and cultural heritage, particularly when original creators are no longer available to express their preferences about how their work should be preserved and shared. The impact of the restoration community extends beyond Star Wars itself, creating precedents and methodologies that are being applied to other entertainment properties with similar preservation challenges. The techniques developed for restoring deleted Star Wars material are now being used to preserve lost content from other film franchises, television series, and even video games that have similar issues with deleted or abandoned content. The technological innovations developed by the restoration community include new software tools for video enhancement, audio reconstruction, and digital compositing that are being adopted by professional archivists and restoration experts. The community's open-source approach to tool development ensures that these innovations benefit the broader preservation community rather than remaining limited to Star Wars applications. As you complete your tour of the restoration facility, the dedication and sophistication of the preservation effort becomes clear. This is not simple fan enthusiasm, but a sophisticated cultural preservation movement that has developed professional quality techniques and philosophical frameworks for protecting important cultural artifacts from loss or corporate restriction. The restoration facility stands as evidence that passionate communities can accomplish preservation and cultural work that exceeds what official institutions are willing or able to undertake. The deleted Star Wars material has found guardians who understand its cultural importance and are committed to ensuring its survival for future generations, regardless of commercial or legal obstacles. This is what happens, Marcus observes as you prepare to leave the restoration facility. When people recognize that some cultural artifacts are too important to remain at the mercy of corporate decisions or commercial considerations, the restoration community has created something unprecedented, a global network dedicated to preserving the complete vision of one of our most important modern mythologies. The silence that follows feels different from the contemplative quiet of the official archives, charged instead with the energy of ongoing work and active preservation. The restoration facility represents not an ending but a beginning, the start of a movement that ensures the deleted dreams of Star Wars will continue to live and grow through the dedication of those who understand their true value. As your journey through the vast archives draws to its close, Marcus leads you to a final chamber that feels different from all the others you have visited. This space exists at the very heart of the preservation facility, its walls lined not with storage containers or computer systems, but with windows that look out into the star-filled darkness of space itself. Here, surrounded by the cosmic vista that inspired the very mythology you have been exploring, the deleted scenes of Star Wars take on their ultimate meaning as part of the eternal cycle of creation, preservation, and rediscovery that drives all human culture. The chamber is filled with a soft, ethereal light that seems to emanate from the stars themselves, creating an atmosphere of profound tranquility that invites reflection on the deeper significance of everything you have witnessed. The preserved footage, the passionate preservationists, the sophisticated analysis systems, and the human stories behind every editorial decision all converge here into a unified understanding of what the deleted content truly represents in the larger tapestry of cultural meaning. Every story, Marcus begins, his voice taking on the cadence of a meditation master, sharing ancient wisdom, exists in multiple versions simultaneously. The version that reaches audiences, the version that lives in the creator's imagination, the version that exists in deleted footage, and the version that grows in the collective memory of those who encounter it. The deleted scenes of Star Wars remind us that the most important stories are always larger than their official presentations, always contain more possibilities than any single version can express. The windows surrounding you frame a vista of distant galaxies, their spiral arms slowly rotating in cosmic dances that span millions of years. The sight creates a profound sense of perspective, reminding you that the stories preserved in this archive are part of a much larger narrative about how conscious beings create meaning in an infinite universe. The deleted scenes represent more than entertainment artifacts. They are evidence of humanity's endless drive to imagine better worlds, to explore deeper truths, and to find connection across the vast distances that separate individual consciousness. The gentle hum of the preservation systems creates a rhythmic backdrop that suggests the breathing of some vast organism, as if the archive itself is alive with the dreams it contains. This sound blends with the almost inaudible whisper of cosmic background radiation, the ancient echo of the universe's birth that still resonates through the emptiness between stars. In this space, the deleted scenes of Star Wars become part of the larger symphony of creation that includes everything from the formation of galaxies to the imagination of storytellers. Marcus activates a final display system that presents not individual deleted scenes, but rather a flowing visual representation of how stories evolve and change over time. The screen shows deleted material morphing into finished films inspiring new stories, and new stories generating their own deleted content in an endless cycle of creative generation and editorial refinement. The visualization reveals that the cutting room floor is not a place of ending, but of transformation, where discarded ideas become the seeds of future inspiration. The eternal cycle of storytelling, Marcus explains, as the display continues its mesmerizing dance of narrative evolution, requires both creation and destruction, both preservation and change. The deleted scenes remind us that every story exists in a state of constant becoming, always growing beyond its current boundaries, always containing more potential than its present form can express. What appears to be loss is actually transformation. What seems like abandonment is actually preparation for rebirth in new forms. The display shows how deleted Star Wars material has influenced countless other stories, how abandoned character arcs have been reborn in different contexts, how discarded themes have found new expression in unexpected places. The visualization reveals that nothing created with genuine passion is ever truly lost, that ideas have their own life force that allows them to survive even when their original containers are discarded. As you watch the flowing patterns of narrative evolution, you begin to understand that your journey through the archives has been more than simple exploration of deleted content. It has been a meditation on the nature of creativity itself, an examination of how ideas move through culture, transform according to circumstances, and eventually find the forms that allow them to express their deepest truths. The peaceful atmosphere of the chamber encourages a state of reflection that allows deeper understanding to emerge organically. The deleted scenes you have encountered represent not just missing pieces of Star Wars, but missing pieces of your own imagination, fragments of possibility that exist in the space between what is and what could be. Every deleted scene contains within it the potential for countless other stories, each one a door opening onto unexplored galaxies of meaning. The stars visible through the chamber's windows seem to pulse with gentle light, as if they are responding to the stories preserved in the archive below. This cosmic rhythm suggests that the act of storytelling is part of a much larger pattern of creation that includes the formation of solar systems, the evolution of life, and the development of consciousness capable of imagining better worlds than the ones it inhabits. Marcus moves to a final control panel that governs the archive's environmental systems, ensuring that the preserved footage will continue to exist in perfect conditions for generations yet to come. His movements are deliberate and ceremonial, suggesting that the maintenance of the archive is itself a form of worship, a recognition that the stories preserved here represent humanity's highest aspirations for meaning and connection. The preservation of these deleted scenes, Marcus says as he completes his final system checks, is an act of faith in the future. We preserve these fragments not because they are perfect, but because they represent possibilities that may become relevant in ways we cannot yet imagine. Future generations will encounter these materials with fresh eyes, discovering meanings that we never suspected, finding applications that we never considered. The chamber's lighting gradually shifts to match the cosmic background visible through the windows, creating a seamless transition between the interior space and the infinite vista beyond. This visual unity suggests that the boundaries between story and reality, between imagination and truth, are far more fluid than they initially appear. The deleted scenes exist in the liminal space where fiction becomes myth, where entertainment becomes wisdom, where individual creativity becomes collective memory. As the lighting continues its gentle transition, you begin to feel a profound sense of connection not just to the Star Wars saga, but to the entire history of human storytelling. The deleted scenes represent every story that was never told, every dream that was never shared, every possibility that remains hidden in the space between what is and what could be. They remind you that every person carries within themselves entire galaxies of untold stories, each one as valuable as the myths that have shaped civilizations. The gentle sound of the preservation systems gradually shifts into harmonies that suggest the music of the spheres, the cosmic symphony that ancient philosophers believed governed the movement of celestial bodies. This auditory transformation creates a sense that you are not just in a storage facility, but in a temple dedicated to the forces that drive all creation, all imagination, all hope for better worlds than the ones we currently inhabit. Marcus approaches the chamber's central meditation area, a space designed for quiet contemplation of the deeper meanings contained within the preserved stories. The furniture here is simple and comfortable, arranged to encourage relaxation while maintaining connection to the cosmic vista that surrounds you. This is a place for processing the overwhelming abundance of possibility that the deleted scenes represent, for allowing their deeper significance to settle into consciousness like sediment in still water. The journey ends here, Marcus says softly, but the journey also begins here. Every encounter with deleted content changes the way you experience the completed films, adds new layers of meaning to familiar stories, opens doors to possibilities that were always present but never fully explored. You leave this archive carrying within you not just knowledge of what was cut, but awareness of what could be. The chamber fills with a profound silence that feels different from simple absence of sound. This is the silence of deep space, of meditation halls, of moments when understanding transcends the need for words. In this silence, the deleted scenes of Star Wars reveal their ultimate purpose, not to provide missing pieces of a puzzle, but to remind you that every story contains infinite possibilities. Every ending suggests new beginnings. Every conclusion opens onto unexplored territories of imagination. The stars outside continue their ancient dance, their light carrying stories of cosmic evolution that dwarf even the most ambitious human narratives. Yet somehow in this moment, the deleted scenes of Star Wars feel connected to that cosmic story, part of the same impulse toward complexity, beauty, and meaning that drives the formation of galaxies and the evolution of consciousness. As you prepare to leave the archive, carrying with you the memories of everything you have encountered, the chamber seems to offer a final gift. The recognition that you are not just a consumer of stories, but a participant in their creation, not just an audience member, but a keeper of the flame that ensures important narratives survive and evolve according to their deepest purposes. The deleted scenes of Star Wars will continue to exist in this sacred space, preserved for future generations who will discover their own meanings in these fragments of possibility. But they will also exist in your memory, in your imagination, in your understanding of how stories work and why they matter. They have become part of your own narrative, part of your own journey through the infinite possibilities that await discovery in the vast galaxy of human creativity. Sweet dreams, fellow traveler. May the Force be with you always in all its deleted and restored forms, in all its possible and impossible variations, in all its eternal and ever-changing manifestations across the endless story that connects every conscious being to every other, across all the space and time that separates us, and across all the stories that unite us in our shared search for meaning among the stars.